Hey man, it starts with a glance, quick, seemingly innocent, but electric. A look that tells your instincts, this one's different, and just like that, your internal chemistry shifts. Your logical mind fades to the background, and the chase begins. But you don't realize yet that you're not chasing her. You're chasing the version of yourself she reflected in that one powerful moment. That's the trap. She knows how to bait it without ever saying a word. She gives you a taste of emotional euphoria, just enough attention, just enough sweetness, and then she pulls away. And when she does, she activates the oldest program in your nervous system, the fear of emotional withdrawal. You confuse the high for love, the distance for a mistake, and her coldness for your failure. Now, she doesn't need to chase. You'll do it for her. The interest trap is subtle. It's not about manipulation in the way people think, yelling, demanding, controlling. It's about emotional rhythm. She studies your reactions with surgical precision. When she compliments you once and watches your energy spike, she knows you're now open. She backs off immediately after, creating a vacuum. That vacuum isn't silence, it's longing. And because most men have never trained themselves to remain centered, they mistake that longing for proof of her value, not proof of their emotional dependence. That's when the chase becomes addiction. That's when the trap closes. And now she doesn't even have to try. Her presence becomes your drug, and you become your own prison guard. You start overthinking everything, what she meant by that text, why she took so long to reply, what you said that made her go distant. You replay conversations in your head, looking for a glitch. But the glitch isn't in the words, it's in your need for approval. You've given her emotional authority. She says hi, and your whole mood lifts. She ignores you, and your confidence nosedives. That's not love, that's control. And it was set in motion the second she knew you needed her attention to feel valuable. Most men never realize it because the interest trap feels like romance. But in reality, it's emotional conditioning. And the more conditioned you get, the more predictable and controllable you become. Here's the brutal truth. Women don't want men they can emotionally manipulate, but they'll still do it to test your frame. If you fail that test, they'll lose attraction. The very moment you start changing your schedule to text her more, over-explaining your intentions, apologizing for being too distant, or checking in to see if she's okay, you confirm her suspicions. You're not grounded, you're emotionally reactive. And the man who reacts is the man she controls. It doesn't matter how attractive you are, how rich, how ambitious. If she can move you off-center with a flirty smile followed by silence, you're already caught. And most men will spend months, even years, chasing that initial spark, never realizing that the spark was bait. You have to understand, her power doesn't come from her words. It comes from your interpretation of her signals. When she plays hot and cold, it's not about logic, it's about emotional warfare. She shows up sweet, curious, and engaged. You start investing emotionally. Then suddenly she withdraws. The silence doesn't scream, it whispers. Prove you're worth chasing. And like a fool, you do. You double text. You send memes. You try to remind her of how good your vibe was. But the moment you reach out like that, you've given up the position of power. You're no longer the mountain. You're the man asking a storm for mercy. And that's how the trap was always designed to end, with you feeling like the failure, when in reality, you were just playing a rigged game. Now here's where it gets even more dangerous. Once you begin to chase, she no longer has to invest in maintaining your attention. You'll do that work for her. You'll send the good morning texts, initiate the calls, plan the dates, ask the questions. You'll carry the emotional labor of the relationship on your back like it's a noble act of love. But what you're really doing is scrambling for crumbs of validation. And the worst part? She'll give them just enough to keep you running, never enough to satisfy. She won't reject you, she'll delay you, because rejection ends a game. But delay turns you into a man waiting for an outcome that's never coming. It's the perfect trap, because it wears the mask of possibility, and your imagination fills in the blanks. You begin to doubt yourself, not because you're weak, but because you were trained to associate female interest with personal worth. From childhood, you were told that if a girl likes you, you're valuable. If she loses interest, you messed up. So when a woman pulls away after being sweet, your inner boy panics. You don't want her approval, you need it to repair your self-image. That's what the interest trap exploits. It doesn't capture your body, it captures your identity. The moment you need her to see you as good enough, the script flips, you become the pursuer, and she becomes the one who decides if you're worthy. It's no longer a relationship, it's an audition, and you're stuck on stage, begging for a role in her story. This is how men lose their edge. Not because they're not smart, not because they're not capable, but because they were never taught how to separate female approval from masculine worth. You see a woman showing you affection, and you feel like you finally won, but you don't realize you didn't win. You just walked into a room where she already knows the exit, and once you attach your identity to how she treats you, she owns the emotional remote. If she pulls away, you obsess. If she praises you, you melt. If she criticizes you, you spiral. That's not connection, that's dependence, and women sense when you depend, and the second they do, they start pulling levers, not out of evil, but instinct. Because the moment you become predictable, you stop being thrilling. And thrill is the currency of female obsession. Now watch what happens when she knows you're in the trap. She gets colder, less engaged. But she doesn't leave. That's key. She sticks around just enough to keep hope alive. She'll respond late but say she misses you. She'll cancel plans but promise to make it up to you. She'll flirt on social media but tell you she doesn't want anyone else. These are not contradictions, they're control tactics. She's confusing your brain and overloading your nervous system with dopamine spikes and crashes. And every crash deepens the addiction, because your brain doesn't bond with peace, it bonds with intensity. And she's feeding you just enough chaos to keep your attention glued to her. You're not in love, you're in withdrawal. And she's the one regulating the dose. The most terrifying part? You won't even realize how much power she holds until you try to pull away. That's when the real grip shows. You'll find yourself checking her profile, wondering why she hasn't reached out, rereading messages to decode hidden meaning. You'll tell yourself you've moved on, but one like from her will send your heart into a spiral. That's not romance, that's trauma bonding. The interest trap conditions you to crave inconsistency. You associate her emotional volatility with value, and so you chase the chaos, thinking it's passion. But it's not, it's programming. You were trained to worship unpredictability, and now you're stuck, not because she's special, but because your nervous system has mistaken her games for love. You might think walking away will free you, but even in distance, the grip remains. That's how deeply the interest trap embeds itself. You'll tell yourself you're done, that you're moving on, but your subconscious is still scanning for her validation. You might block her and still check to see if she found a way around it. You'll post something confident just to see if she notices. That's not power, that's you reacting. She still controls your emotional climate even when she's gone. And that's the whole game. She doesn't need to be in your life to own a piece of your mind. She just needs to make sure you remember the high. Because the memory of that attention, the moment she looked at you like you were the only man alive, is enough to keep you enslaved if you're not careful. Here's how the trap tightens over time. Your standards lower. You accept less and less just to feel that spark again. You start to rationalize her disrespect, minimize your needs, and inflate her worth. You say things like, she's just busy, or maybe I overreacted. You defend her to your friends, you hide your frustration, and you keep giving, hoping she'll finally return to the girl you saw at the beginning. But that girl wasn't real. She was bait. And what you're clinging to is a fantasy she no longer has to maintain because she already has your emotional investment. And once you've handed that over, she has the freedom to do the bare minimum. That's the genius of the interest trap. It makes you work harder the less she gives. If you want to escape this trap, you must do something most men never will. You must detach from the reward. You must become the man who doesn't chase the spike of female attention, who doesn't fold when affection is withdrawn, who doesn't overthink silence. That's the man who breaks the cycle, because he knows something most never learn. Peace is more seductive than chaos to a woman who is ready for depth. But here's the paradox. Most women will test you with chaos, first to see if you're truly anchored. They'll try the interest trap. They'll try the flirty bait followed by withdrawal. But when they see you unmoved, when they see you remain grounded, detached, unbothered, that's when obsession begins. Not because you played the game, but because you refuse to play it all. The truth is, women don't fall for effort, they fall for presence. Not constant contact, but masculine stillness. The man who can hold his own without begging for emotional breadcrumbs. The man who doesn't flinch when she pulls away. The man who knows she's testing and passes by simply being. No need to explain, no need to chase, no need to react. That's the antidote to the interest trap. Emotional sovereignty. When she sees that her tactics no longer dictate your energy, when your identity is no longer tied to her interest, she either evolves or exits. And either way, you win, because you're no longer the man waiting to be chosen. You're the man who knows he is the prize and acts like it. So ask yourself now, are you being baited? Is the woman you're thinking about giving you peace or confusion? Is she present or playing tug of war with your attention? Does she give to you or just give enough to keep you on the hook? If you feel emotionally spun, second-guessing your worth, stuck in a cycle of pursuit and disappointment, you're not in love, you're in a loop. A loop designed to drain your masculine power and replace it with anxiety, confusion, and neediness. And no matter how much you think she's different, the only thing that matters is how you feel when you're with her. Because true connection doesn't leave you guessing, it grounds you. Anything else is a trap. And the only way out is to stop playing. Once you break free from the interest trap, the world starts to look different. You stop seeing women as puzzles to solve or prizes to win. You begin to realize that your time, attention, and emotional energy are currency, and not everyone deserves it. Especially not someone who throws you breadcrumbs and calls it love. You'll start to notice how many of your past connections were rooted in emotional scarcity, in trying to win back attention that was never consistently given in the first place. And that realization, while painful, is liberating, because it means your worth never came from her interest to begin with. It was always within you. And now, with that clarity, you can start choosing peace over pursuit, grounding over games, truth over trauma bonds. She'll feel the shift too. When you stop reacting, when you stop chasing, when your phone goes silent instead of double texting in panic, she'll feel it. She might reach back out, testing to see if the hook is still in place. She'll say, "Hey, haven't heard from you," or "You're acting different." That's not concern, that's control. She's checking if her spell still works, and if you respond too quickly, too eagerly, you reinforce the dynamic. But if you respond with calm detachment, a centered masculine energy that doesn't need her validation, she'll feel it in her gut, and respect will replace manipulation. Because women don't crave attention, they crave dominance of frame. They want to feel your emotional spine holding its ground, no matter what storm they throw your way. But here's the thing, most men forget, this strength doesn't come from bitterness. It doesn't come from hating women or seeing them as enemies. That's just another form of obsession. No, the real strength comes from indifference to outcome. You give love when it's reciprocated, respect when it's earned, and energy when it's mutually nourishing. If it isn't, you walk away without flinching. Not because you're cold, but because you built a life so full, so grounded, so rich with purpose, that anyone who tries to play games just disqualifies themselves. Your mission becomes your filter, and once that's in place, you never fall for the interest trap again. You recognize it from miles away, and you smile because now you know. There's a silent kind of power that comes from no longer needing women's attention, not rejecting it, not fearing it, but simply not depending on it. That power shifts everything. It changes how you walk, how you speak, how you respond. It infuses your presence with mystery, certainty, and calm. And women can feel it. They're drawn to it, because now you're not the man begging for their time. You're the man whose time must be earned. And the ones who are only there to feed on your attention, they vanish. The ones who sought to manipulate, they fade. And what's left are women who are ready for depth, ready for real connection, ready for a man who isn't dancing for approval, but leading with self-respect. So remember this, the interest trap is never about love, it's about power, it's about control, and it only works on men who haven't yet found their center. The second you reclaim that center, everything changes, the games stop working, the confusion ends. And in that space of clarity, you'll start to attract something deeper, not just from women, but from life itself. Because you're no longer chasing highs, you're building peace. You're no longer hoping to be chosen, you're choosing yourself. And from that place, no woman, no fantasy, no validation can ever hold you hostage again. You'll walk free, not because she let you go, but because you chose to leave the trap behind. Now here's the most subtle trick of the interest trap. She never says it out loud. She doesn't need to. It's all in the timing, in the glance, in the delayed responses, the cryptic compliments, the hot and cold attention. One moment she's warm, soft, affectionate, and then suddenly she's gone, distant, distracted. And you, unaware, start analyzing every detail, reading between the lines, trying to get back to the version of her you saw just days ago. That's how it works. Uncertainty breeds desire. Not love, desire. And the more unpredictable she is, the more your mind tries to create stories to explain it. And those stories, they're not about her. They're about you and your need to feel wanted again. That's how she hooks you deeper, by saying nothing and letting your imagination do the rest. You start replaying moments. You convince yourself there was something special there, that the connection was too real to fake, that maybe she's just scared or overwhelmed or busy. You think back to that night she laughed so hard she leaned into you, or that time she held your gaze like she saw your soul. You build a mythology around a moment, and it's that mythology that traps you, not her. Because the truth is, she may not have felt any of it the way you did, but you felt it so deeply, you assign it meaning. And meaning is what makes men obsessed. That's the key to the trap. She doesn't have to be extraordinary. You just have to believe she is. And once you do, you'll tolerate anything to get that version of her back. To break free, you must burn the illusion. You must let go of the version of her that existed only in your hope. Not to become cold, but to become clear. The woman who respects you, who values your time, your heart, your energy, she won't confuse you. She won't give you just enough to keep you in limbo. She'll be consistent. She'll move toward you, not away. But to recognize her, you have to clear out the fog of the one who trained you to crave the confusion. That means sitting with your loneliness, not medicating it with attention. That means finding your validation in your mission, not her responses. That means choosing truth, even if it means losing the fantasy. Because once you do that, you reclaim your strength. And that strength is the most seductive thing a man can ever wear. And here's the twist that will shake you. Once you escape the trap, the same women who once confused you will start chasing you. Not because they changed, but because you did. You stopped needing them. You stopped engaging in the dance. You became emotionally unshakable. And now, they feel off balance around you. Your silence becomes louder than their manipulation. Your boundaries become more compelling than your compliments used to be. And suddenly, they crave you. But by then, you'll see it for what it is. Not love, not fate, not destiny, but a test. A test to see if you've really evolved, and you'll pass it, not by rejecting them with anger, but by moving on with calm certainty, because you're no longer moved by interest, you're driven by purpose. So let this be the final truth you take from this. You were never weak. You were just unaware. You were never clingy. You were just human, craving connection. But now you know. You know the trap. You've seen how beauty and mystery and attention can be weaponized. And you've learned that the man who wins isn't the one who figures her out. It's the one who figures himself out first. The one who reclaims his time, rebuilds his spine, rewires his worth. The man who walks away from confusion and into clarity. That man doesn't chase interest. He commands obsession, not by force, but by stillness. He doesn't react, he leads. And once you become him, no woman, no trap, no beauty will ever own you again.